Hey, Historical Geology. I'm Professor Colosimo. It's so nice to meet you. Welcome to Historical Geology, GEO 102. Historical Geology is one of my favorite classes to teach. It is the history of the Earth. We start at the Big Bang and we mostly make it to the present. It's an incredible journey, literally starting 4.56 billion years ago and making it to today. We start, the first unit really is talking about what is historical geology, how did geology become a science, how do we know some of the things that you learned in physical geology, and then we really get into the history of the Earth, starting with Earth's early cooling from a molten state and extending through the formation of continents and the formation of oceans and the formation of the atmosphere. How did oxygen get into our atmosphere? When did life evolve? Why are the oceans salty? Why is the sky blue? These are questions we're going to answer over the next 15 weeks. It is a fascinating class. I hope you come to love it as much as so before I blither on anymore, let me kind of walk you through the course. This video is really designed to introduce you to the class, to show you what it is you need to be doing and where you need to find it. So this is the homepage for the class, and this video or some link to it will be posted here once it's done. But you see a really brief course description there. You see the dates for the course, where my virtual office can be found, and here's when I will definitely be available in my virtual office hours. You can log in here anytime. You can get to there from your phone, you can get there from Blackboard or laptop, whatever you need, anywhere you have internet connection. I'm here lots of other times too, so if there's ever a time that you need to get together and talk, maybe you have questions about the course, maybe you want to know more about study skills. I'm sorry if you just saw my dog wander and then sigh dramatically behind me. You have questions about geology as a career, as a field. If you want to talk about transfers, if you want to be a major, let me know. I'd love to chat with you. I have been teaching for well over 15 years now, and I love it. I love teaching. I love geology, and I'm always happy to meet with you to chat. And this is a fully online class, and so you will be meeting with me anyway, as we'll see in a minute. But this is a time when in between those meetings we can connect. All right, so I'm assuming this isn't your first online class, but if it is, I'm going to run through all the things that you will need to know here. So this is what the class will look like when you log in. So here's your welcome page. If you need information from MCC, you can find it here. If you want to email me and you don't want to go all the way over here, you can just click here. Once I grade assignments, they'll show up in your grades area right here. About once a week, I'll send you an announcement, and my announcement will tell you any new updates for the week, and then we'll also give you a list of assignments that will be due Saturday night. I'll show you where else you can find that also, but I usually post all my announcements here, and then you'll also get an email with them attached. Some of you really like working with others, and this is going to be a really small class, so it would be great if you want to work with others, if you joined Circle In. So Circle In is a service that MCC currently subscribes to, basically where students can post questions that their classmates can answer. You get points for asking questions, you get points for answering questions, and it's just a place to encourage kind of collaboration with students. And you can earn points, I guess, that you can redeem for Amazon gift cards, which is kind of fun. So if you're a person who really likes working with other people, I advise you to check that out. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about the course info sheet, and then we'll come back and talk about the rest of this business here. So I know that you are all capable of reading, so I won't spend a great amount of time talking about this, but I do want to kind of introduce you to the class and let you know what the norms are for this class and what you should expect for the semester. So I've already kind of talked about the first half of this page. So here's a little list, top 5 things that you will learn in this class by the end of the class. I do want to talk to you about the book. So the book is called The Earth Through Time by Levin, and there's lots of editions of the book. In fact, this is the book that I used, although it was a much earlier edition when I went to college, and it's a great book. You can but it doesn't really change that much, it turns out. So you can get the 8th, 9th, 10th, or 11th edition, whichever makes the most sense for you. You can buy it, you can rent it, there's ebooks. So depending on your preference, make sure you get the book because it's a great resource. But again, you don't need the most current edition. So those are available to you certainly on the web, and I put the ebook in the bookstore in case you want to use bookstore credit for it. So whatever makes sense in your particular situation. So throughout the class, you'll also need access to digital materials. So MCC has free Microsoft Office for students. So this will be your PowerPoint, Outlook, Word, and Excel. And that's available at this link here. You'll also be using Google Earth Pro for desktop, not the web version. The web version has so many fewer bells and whistles, and it's such a great program. So that's available at the hyperlink that you see here. So I did want to take a minute to talk about this class. So the class is never a huge class, but it's people who really seem to enjoy geology. Some of the folks who are in here are going to be people who will be certified to teach earth science in the future. Some of you will be future geology majors. Some of you are interested in sustainability. Some of you are just finishing up your science requirements. But I think it's important that we know that we all are capable of learning geology, and we all kind of want this to be a good experience, I'm assuming. So let's approach it with an attitude where we're all going to have the best possible outcomes from this course. I will tell you, this is the first time I've ever taught this course online. I am bound to make mistakes. I encourage you, I welcome you to let me know when I make those mistakes because I want to fix them. So, but to tell me about those mistakes respectfully. Respect is such an important but really basic attribute that I would like us all to kind of model in the class. So, if I have a question for you, I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to ask you in a respectful way. I expect you, when you have a question, that you reach out to me too. And I expect a reasonably prompt response from you, and I'm sure you expect a reasonably prompt response from me. So during the week, I will definitely respond to your email within 24 hours unless something totally unexpected happens, which I think we all know is a very real possibility. Over the weekend, I usually don't check my email, but I will Monday morning. So I wouldn't expect that if you sent me an email Saturday night at 9 o'clock that I am sitting there waiting for you. But I will get back to you when the work week starts again. I expect that you talk to each other nicely in your discussion forums, that you talk to each other with respect and kindness in Circle In, and that you basically become like the person that you would want to be working with too. All right. Next thing I want you to know about is that learning is a process, and part of that process is the struggle. If you're not struggling just a little bit, then you're probably not learning a whole lot. So I want you to grapple with concepts, but I don't want you to grapple with concepts so long that you run out of time for doing all the other things you have to do. So if you're not making much progress, please reach out to me. But remember that this is a process. And if you were taking this class face-to-face, you would be taking lecture for 3 hours a week and lab for 3 hours a week. So you should be expecting, and that doesn't include homework, and it doesn't include study time. So in reality, this is a time commitment, and it's a time commitment that you should be cognizant of and be ready to make if you're going to dedicate yourself to this class. So you also kind of want to pace yourself. You need some time to think. Waiting till Saturday to do an entire week's worth of material that's going to be due Saturday night isn't really going to give your brain time to kind of let some concepts sink in and connect with your pre-existing concepts. So keep that in mind. All right. Also, this year has taught us anything. It's that things happen, very unexpected things sometimes. So there are deadlines for this class for certain. Every Saturday night you have work that will be due. But things happen, and as they happen, just like in real life, if I had a report that was due that I couldn't get to my boss in time, I would shoot my boss an email and say, hey, working on this, but run into a few roadblocks or have a sick kid, had a hot water tank explode, something like that. But I'm going to get to it by this time. And I'm not an unreasonable person. So when things happen, let me know and we'll work it out and figure out something that makes sense. And so that you can get back on track and be successful. But that really only works if you communicate with me because I don't know what's happening with you. So good stuff. So this is something that I'm hoping that we can do, but I would like to be cautious and safe. So I am foolishly optimistic that by May the world may be different, and if it is, and and college lets us do that. We have 2 field trips at the end of the semester, the last 2 weeks of the semester, and it would be kind of great if we could actually meet at those field locations, if people want to. I have virtual field trips totally made and ready to go, but if that's a possibility, I will let you know. But I just wanted to put it out there, and if it's not a possibility, then that's totally fine. Like I said, we're totally ready to go. So let's talk about how you're graded. So you will be graded about 70% of your grade are points earned from your lecture portion of the course, which consists of 4 exams, quizzes, assignments, discussion forums. Lots of the assignments you can do again and again and again. They're really designed for mastery so that you get the material. And some of them are not. But for a detailed list of assignments and due dates, we're going to look in this area in just a bit called What's Due When. The remaining 30% of your grade is lab-based activities, which includes 12 labs, all hands-on. There'll be a midterm exam, and a final exam also will be described in What's Due When. Here's your grading structure so you can figure out what your letter grade is for the class. Your lecture exams are a variety of multiple choice, matching true-false, diagrams, and short answer questions. Your lecture exams don't need to be proctored, but they are timed, so you should prepare for them the same way you would prepare for a face-to-face test. You literally won't have time to complete it if you haven't gained some level of mastery over the lecture content. And so, yeah, there's lots of discussion forums where you can interact with your very small group of classmates. Hopefully you can make some good connections. And I'll talk to you about something in just a sec. Finally, this is something I really want to do because this is a class of students who usually, a good handful of you will go on to become geology majors or to have a career in a geology related field. So I really want to meet you, and I'd like to be able to talk to you about things you're struggling with in the class, things you're struggling with as a student. I want to talk to you about careers and transfer and all those things. And I also want to make sure I touch base with you a few times throughout the semester. So that's what's described here. There are 4 times over the semester, and the first one is actually in the first couple weeks of class where we can connect to make sure everything starts smoothly. You will set up at least 4 Zoom meetings over the semester with your instructor, designed to be only about 15 minutes in length. They can go longer if we need to. They're opportunities for you to check in with me about whatever. And there's a link here, but then there also will be a link that I'll send you shortly where you can set up your Zoom meeting. All right, there is a midterm and final and lab where you will get a chance to apply basically the same either rock, mineral, fossil identification skills onto different samples, or you will be doing what are called correlations, but with new examples. We cover a variety of cool topics, and you'll see that at the bottom of this list, I believe, maybe. No, you'll see that on your lab list. The first half of lab will cover rocks, minerals, fossils, and sedimentary structures. And you'll take a midterm, after which most of the hands-on, like stuff that we would normally do with hands-on samples, will be done for the class. After the midterm, we will learn different techniques to interpret the past. So we will be looking at records to understand sea level fluctuations. We will look at rock records and interpret tectonic events. We will be able to examine glacial data to understand ice ages. So I think this is going to be a really fun semester. Oh, you know what? I skipped one of the most important parts. So I've alluded to this a couple times. This is what's due when. And at the time of this video, this is under development because, again, this is the first time I've taught this, and I've created a ton of assignments, but not all of them. But I'll use this as a way to talk to you a little bit about what you can expect in the class. So you've all taken physical geology. So we're going to be reminding you, kind of reinstilling some of that understanding here in historical. Then we're going to be building on it. But we're also going to be learning all new concepts as well. So your first week due on January 30th is not a ton of work actually. There is an icebreaker, which is 10 points, and then there is a plate tectonics activity. Don't be deceived. I know you all think you know plate tectonics. This activity usually takes my class about an hour to do. So make sure you do the plate tectonics review, which is something that you learned about in 101. We're going to expand upon it in 102 and go into more detail. But we have to make sure that we all remember all of those finer points from 101. And then there's a very short lab assignment on minerals. So in historical, there's only about 10 minerals that turn out to be really important for sedimentary rocks, which is mostly what we cover in 102. So even though you learned 30 in 101, we just need to remind ourselves of the top 10 most important ones for sedimentary rocks for 102. All right. The following week, we'll learn a little bit more about geology as a science and then a concept called deep time. And you can see here in blue, these are the assignments and then the corresponding point value. That same week, we will do an assignment on chemical and clastic sedimentary rocks and a pre-lab on fossils. And for lab, the next couple weeks are just 2 weeks of fossils, good time. And we start talking about deep time, which is really just the expanse of geologic time, how we learn about how old things are. So radioactive decay, you'll learn to use a scientific calculator. If you don't know how to use one, that's cool. I have a tutorial. You'll watch a video on the Big Bang and we'll learn about how the solar system was created. Week after that, we will learn more about sedimentary rocks. What are the tectonic settings under which sedimentary rocks are created? How do we interpret sedimentary rocks to figure out where those rocks formed in the past? And then we'll have our first lecture exam. After our lecture exam, we'll come back and we will learn about a different technique that you maybe have never heard of called lithologic correlation. Lithologic correlation really allows us to figure out in a larger context, how are the environmental changes in a region? You'll do a lab on said structures, which you may remember from 101 includes things like mud cracks and cross beds and graded bedding and things like that. So we'll bring all that back and then keep it going, keep it moving on to the next topic. Right around 6th week of the semester, we'll start learning about the layers of the earth and how we know about the layers of the earth. Oh, and actually I forgot to point out 2 things. So your first class check-in, what you'll do is you and I will meet for 15 minutes and then you'll submit an assignment basically just saying, hey, this is what Colosimo and I talked about. And you submit the assignment for 10 points. You do the second one just before your first lecture exam. So you can do it earlier if you want, but by the first lecture exam, we'll have met twice and we can chat about questions that you might have. All right, back to week 6. You'll have your midterm for lab and it will cover all of the previous weeks in here. So fossils, sed structures, sedimentary rocks, and minerals. And then well, you can see this is where in lecture, we really start going through the sequence of Earth history, almost like pages of a book. So we start with the earliest eon, the Hadean eon, and head to the following one, the next week, the Archean eon. The Proterozoic eon is divided into weeks 9 and 10 because there's so many cool things that happen in there, including the oxygenation of the Earth's atmosphere and a time period called Snowball Earth, which is pretty sweet. So we have the first great evidence for fossils with hard parts during the Paleozoic era. You'll have another check-in before check-in before exam 1, 2, 3, and then one before your final. Unit 3 will start with the Mesozoic period, which is the period called the Age of Reptiles. We'll then continue. We'll have another week on the Mesozoic period. The Cenozoic, and that'll end, we'll move into the Cenozoic era, which is our modern era. And, what is this? Oh, those are your point values. Sorry for lab. They fell onto the next page. In Cenozoic era, we are in the Cenozoic era. So then we'll wrap up and you'll take your final exam. Just to go back in lab, after your midterm, you'll basically learn to analyze what are called stratigraphic columns, which is correlation. We'll have labs on correlation for Facies migration is a correlation lab. Basin analysis is a correlation lab. We will look at sand samples, and you will have your mind blown by how cool it is to look at sand under a microscope. We will do a couple labs on structural geology, which is the folding and faulting of rocks. We will do a lab on climate proxies, which is how we use ice core data and isotopes to figure out what the temperature was in Earth's past. Then you'll have your lab final in the 13th week of the semester. Last 2 weeks are virtual field trips. One is a field trip where we learn about geologic history. We look at lots of rock samples and figure out how Rochester was shaped by rising and falling of sea level. And then your last field trip is a fossil collecting field trip to Mount Morris in New York, in like south of New York, called Little Beards Creek. So almost done, promise. There are just a couple important resources over here that you might find useful. The geologic timescale we refer to many times. So here is a copy of it that you can always kind of have on hand here. It might be more detailed than we need, but nevertheless accessible right there at a moment's notice. We do a lot of chemistry in this class. Chemistry, it turns out, explains everything. So this periodic table we'll use multiple times in the first unit. Don't worry if you haven't taken any chemistry. I pretty much teach it as though you've had almost no chemistry. So don't worry about that. If you need help from Blackboard, there's a link right there. And if you want to email me, my email is in probably 3 or 4 different places in this site, but there's a link right there as well. Oh, look at right there and there. So convenient. All right. So it's possible that there might be a couple tweaks to this website by the time class opens, but this is what it looks like today. Everything will be up and ready to go by the time class starts for you guys. All right, I'm looking forward to a really exciting semester. I hope you are too. Thanks.